First of all, let's discuss what kind of finance are in place. There are banks, there are classical financial institutions, something that you use every single day. In the cryptocurrency world is CeFi, or centralized finance. You're familiar with Binance and others, where you have to confirm your identity with a passport and so forth. And you can do nothing without Binance authorization. Your account can be blocked and so forth. And recently, we experienced some problems. There are also CDFIs, centralized, decentralized finance, which is about decentralized systems that cannot exist without centralized processes such as crediting and so forth. And for this, they need an intermediary who will give you money and insure your assets. And last but not least, DeFi, decentralized finance, which model does not provide for any man in the middle or centralized processes. They are based on contracts, smart contracts. Let's look at the first graph. This is the dynamics of crypto assets dynamics. As you can see, in 2021, we experienced certain growth, which is due to COVID. People are sick and tired of the government control, wishing to be in control of their money in full. Another important DeFi feature is DVL, the amount of money locked, the status of the project, whether it is volatile or not. This logic can be used in order to understand if a service is useful or not, is it popular or not, do people trust it or not. Most recently, we've been seeing a slight decline, which can be explained by the fact that the market is going slightly down. You can look at this graph, where you can see the dynamics of user headcount growth. There is now a plateau. You can see two spikes. Generally speaking, this graph is pretty positive. Let's try to understand why and identify some interest factors. First of all, it is the anonymous nature of cryptocurrencies. When I first heard about cryptocurrencies, I got really interested. How come that they are anonymous? But we have to understand the term anonymity. With blockchain, you can look up the balance of any wallet, and you are anonymous until your account or identity have been identified or detected. So you should take care of maintaining your anonymity. I mentioned smart contracts as a set of terms based on which certain actions are performed, such as fund transfers, loan issues, and we'll get back to this topic, how it's done in DeFi. Speaking about smart contracts, in DeFi everything is open source based, which means that anyone can check the code in order to understand if the protocol is secure. But there is a slight disadvantage. People can find exploits and take advantage of them to steal your money, so you should understand that such openness also translates into certain limitations. Next, openness and inclusivity. It means that anyone can open a wallet, transfer money, use services. There are no constraints. When it comes to insurance or borrowing, no one can tell that you are a suspicious person. As long as you have money, you will be granted a loan. Now, asset diversification. Cryptocurrencies, along with precious metals, may be a great instrument for investment diversification, but because of high volatility, one should be really careful. And it is a rule of thumb in the cryptocurrency world, check everything yourself. Let me remind of you, although I am not officially recommending anything. So those currencies are volatile, people invest in them, and this may produce an impression that your profits can be much higher. We all have heard lots of stories about people making huge money. However, there are many more examples of less experienced people entrusting their funds to third parties and eventually losing money. It's kind of hype. The concept is popular, but with this huge number of protocols, you can be easily robbed. So be careful. Another important point, the feeling of independence and full control over your assets. You remember the notion of seed phrase. If you lose your seed phrase, you lose your control over your assets. So be sure to make sure to be in control of it at all times.
Ссылаясь к Рику и Морти и к фразе «do your own research», делайте свои выводы сами в рамках DeFi.
Don't forget about the do your own research principle. Check everything on your own. Now, let's discuss the digital currencies of central banks. Most recently, many of you may have heard about the digital ruble. Not too many people understand why. In the first place, these are just digital money issued by governments. They are not cryptocurrencies. They are issued by governments, as I said. However, they are not full-fledged currencies. So why? What's the purpose of that? For ordinary people, they may serve as a way to complete international fund transfers. With digital currencies, they are much easier. Next, no fund transfer fee. According to the Central Bank of Russia, the digital ruble can be used for person-to-person fund transfers. But this is just a prelude. Obviously, it is something different that the government is interested in. The government wants to be in control of cash flows. The government needs to know how people use their money, knowing that many people fail to pay their taxes. We are going to continue this discussion of the digital ruble. You, for example, can only be allowed to spend the digital ruble on import substitution products or on internal fund transfers only. You may think that it's a bad thing. However, if you look at it from the perspective of public organizations like schools or kindergartens, well, we can expect that this instrument will help us to reduce the rate of corruption and so forth. What countries have already introduced their digital currencies? They include India and China and the UAE and others, Zimbabwe, for example. In those countries, you can use their digital currencies to do person-to-person transfers and so forth. And, well, the digital yuan is used in China, for example. In India, you can use digital rupee to buy goods at a chain of stores. The UAE, they have set up a system of digital fund transfers with the use of their national currency. Zimbabwe, this example may look strange because their digital currency is attached to some special currency controlled by their central bank. Nigeria can also be mentioned on this list. The country introduced certain limits on the use of digital currency, which resulted in protests. As you may know, in Russia, a pilot is to be launched this May, and it will be carried out until the end of the year, and probably after this period, it will be fully launched. But you should remember that the digital ruble is only intended to help you save money. You can borrow in digital rubles. Moreover, your digital ruble account will be based on the central bank account, and all your transactions will go via the central bank, and you will not need to turn to commercial banks, which will make your transactions even more transparent. In Sweden, they carried out pilot with their digital currency in 2021. Oh, well, here is a full list of countries. Interesting examples here are the USA, maybe Belarus, the EU. Many of these countries previously announced their plans for digital currencies. I wonder if any of them will be able to come up with something even more useful for the society. Well, actually, that's it. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to write me via Telegram. Follow our posts in social media. You will find a lot of interesting information. And if you have any questions right now, don't hesitate to ask them.
В общем, достаточно много было за последние годы новостей.
Well, in the recent years, we heard lots of news announcements concerning failures of exchanges, platforms, those being broken. In these circumstances, how should we see the future of those platforms? Because it's them that serve basis for this technology. Well, if one is investing, they want to be sure that their assets will be well protected. What's your vision of the future solution of this problem? Well, thank you for the question. In the first place, I should remind you that this technology is still very young. A lot is being invested in development for DeFi. There are still a lot of bugs and other issues. On the other hand, the platform offers a lot of interesting things, such as loans and so forth. Today, you are taking all these risks investing in the future in order to be able to get something bigger and better in the future. I am sure that the technology will continue to develop and there will be fewer and fewer gaps. I'd like to add something. These digital currencies are intended to help the governments move towards the digit. Previously, it was unclear who to bring to the book. Should there be fraud and so forth? And with digital ruble, the government addresses two problems. First, it plays with and tests those new technologies in order to understand better how to work with them and how to regulate them. And secondly, issuing FTT. When central banks issue digital currencies, the government and acts as a guarantor. For instance, when you're buying bonds or stocks, show me your hands, those of you who have stocks or bonds. Who of you understand how they work? Oh, quite a few. Great. Whatever strange it may sound, and we've been discussing decentralization, lack of trust, the constant is needed for us to reach mutual trust in environments that are not fine-tuned for that. And here, everything resides on trust. We trust Binance because they are a major platform and they are not interested in losing their face and having their reputation broken. And in this case, we're relying on the government as a guarantor. Well, it appears that I'm departing from the main topic again. I apologize for that. I have a question regarding the digital ruble. What blockchain will be working with the digital ruble? Will there be any special algorithm for that? Well, I think they'll be using their own platform. In fact, it's not a cryptocurrency. There is no special constant algorithm for that. It resides on the fact that you trust the Central Bank of Russia.
Да, это абсолютно вот верно замечено, то, что это
сервис. It is a centralized service, and you have to understand that there are two types:
закрытые — это те, где узлы однозначно известны, там есть регулирующий орган, и здесь система точно такая же.
The nodes are well known, there is a regulatory body, and here the situation is the same.
И не сможем посмотреть там, вот
with the digital ruble, we will not have any access to view the transactions.
Так, где мои деньги? Ну, ладно, примерно не суть.
This guy gave 500 rubles to his friend. I want to know about it. No, it's about the government. The government will be able to control each and every transaction, all the way down to the smallest ones. Thank you very much for your very interesting presentation. I have a couple of questions. First, it was mentioned that it's necessary to do your own research and checks. What's necessary for that? There are open source smart contracts. If you understand what it is, you can look into it. But there are also trusted parties, trusted auditors. If you trust them, there are many ways how to use them to check what you want to check. You can also check the TVL capitalization to see how many people invest. And trust your guts. Your gut feeling, it's also very important. Thank you. Another question. Is it possible to use current platforms for interaction with existing services? There is a well-known problem of bypassing sanctions. Visa and MasterCard have left. We're here with our domestic payment systems only. How can this solution be used? Well, it all depends on the marketplace. If they welcome specific cryptocurrencies, if you're experiencing problems with using your Visa or MasterCard cards, so coming to a store, scanning your QR code, and paying with cryptocurrency, that's not possible. Well, I'm speaking about virtual services such as Apache, the internet. For instance, can I use it? Can I get my virtual card on DeFi in order to achieve this end? Let me fall back to the previous question, if you don't mind. Well, in fact, the question is not articulated properly. The checklist is designed to help you do your own research. And it's important to understand what you want to examine. Those bullet points will be different, and they will vary from one area to another. If my understanding is correct, you want to know if there are trans-border services allowing to transfer funds. What do you mean? Cryptocurrency or fiats or, well, no, I am talking about untraceable buys with no limitations. You should know that there is such a thing as KYC, know your customer. Both Binance and, if I'm not mistaken, most recently, the EU published a new rule that every service should stick with the KYC procedure.
Скажем так, законодательство от него не требует этого, и ему это не нужно, да, то есть он
не спрашивает.
По поводу сервисов тут рассказывали про Bitcoin, когда было приведено несколько и в России они они пока что еще не очень популяризированы.
Not too many of them are popular in Russia, however, they are in place.
Покупка премиумов в Телеграме. Если что, это не реклама.
Buying premium accounts in Telegram, don't take it for advertisement. You can buy it for ton, for instance, which is a pretty obvious example, the very illustrative one. Now, booking hotels, I know that people use it to buy vehicles. Hopefully, I answered your question.
Еще, вот здесь, я помню, был еще вопрос. Он еще остался?
I see a hand here. Do you still want to ask your question? Thank you for your previous answers. You mentioned regulator for the digital ruble. And you also said that it wouldn't be mined, so what's the difference? What differs it from your bank account, which you can use to pay for your buys without cash? Well, actually, there is no special point. What I mentioned is an advantage for a regular user is international transfers. There is nothing else that differs it from traditional bank account. Even to top up your digital ruble account, you will need to use your bank account. So the only advantage or advantages are international transfers and no fees. There are plenty of commercial banks, all of them are subordinate to the central bank. There is no regulation. And it's not possible to control the transactions. With digital ruble, there will be a single, unified system. At this point, it's not really clear what they want to attain, but it's the first step in setting up digital currency regulation in Russia to make everything visible by the government. I don't see any problem here. Everything is visible right now, all your transactions, all your purchases, all your taxes, and so forth. Let's get back to the Bitcoin. We can look up transactions. If we get back to the banks that are to report to the tax authority, it will be much easier for them to do so. And there will be fewer opportunities for money laundering.
Ну, в целом, да. То есть для центрального банка это просто еще один инструмент, с помощью которого будет удобнее отслеживать.
You're right. It will be yet another tool for the central bank to trace the transactions. I think that the system will be not visible to ordinary users. If we look at those services in general, my question is plain and simple. You mentioned decentralized finance, and there are a lot of DeFi services already. How does it work from the perspective of the government? Let's assume you invest, you transfer your money, and then all of a sudden the service collapses. And what can be done? How is it seen by the regulators? Maybe you are familiar with some practices. Do you remember the presentation on TON? And their ICO was mentioned. Usually, the regulators hate cyber currencies other than the Bitcoin, and they would love to prohibit all of them except for the Bitcoin. As to disclosing the source code to the regulator, well, I'm in no position to comment on that. I know that the regulator in the USA only believes in Bitcoin. Now to my second question. Is it technically possible to block it for people inside the country not to be able to take their funds out of the country via regulated, decentralized services? I haven't heard about that. And I think that it's kind of difficult because all the transactions are peer-to-peer. And to prohibit people let their cryptocurrency assets out of DeFi is about forbidding person-to-person fund transfers, which may be a problem for the government. So nothing can be done about that. Can't it? To achieve that, it's important if any pressure can be imposed on anyone, but for that, it's important to know who those persons should be. Well, for instance, you come to say, look, this person is a suspicious person, don't work with them, don't accept any funds from them. With DeFi, it's more interesting. If there is organization engaged in developing this protocol, the regulator can approach them to say, let's block this address. But I haven't heard about any precedents like this. Protocol-wise, it's controlled like a DAO. I presume that the DAO concept is not really clear to you. It's a decentralized organization. Where people make decentralized decisions in blockchain, and it's not really clear how DAO could be made responsible. That's a separate topic. I think that it may be interesting for you to study some reports by the Central Bank of Russia. They include sections on DeFi in Russia. Well, unfortunately, we're running out of our time, so let it be the last question. Sergey, please choose someone whose question, or the one whose question seems most interesting to you. Well, I know who I'm going to choose. The young man here. So this T-shirt goes to you. Thank you for your questions. Now, please raise your hands, those of you who were with us before, because we have another T-shirt that we would like to give away. Alexander was present here, and Alexander is choosing you. Okay, let's say thank you to Sergey.